Boom.
Clearly super ambitious.
Like, I just don't care.
Zany adventure.
Steak and mustaches.
But I caught my dad watching it once when I came home. And the production values are really high.
Beautifully put together.
Because their dad's a fucking psychotic alien.
Backstory on that you're left to wonder about.
Give me more heroin.
Shoot me now.
Broadcasting live from inside the power band, this is The Blah. In this episode, everybody dies. I'm your host, the Wolverine, along with my intrepid companions, Jarhigo.
Yep.
And C-Lab Forever.
What's up?
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Thank you for excusing us for our week of absence as I was personally living in hell. And now we're back with a vengeance. Stronger than we were before, better than we were before, with longer mustaches than we had before. And this week we're going to be talking about Season 2 of the very popular Netflix show, The Umbrella Academy. And I, for one, am very excited.
Totally.
Let's start the show.
Tell me some high level, dudes. What did you guys think of this one?
Go.
Okay, I guess that's me. I'm not into it. There's my high level.
Wow.
Just not into it.
All right.
Wow.
That's a shift from last season.
I am really, really sad.
I don't know if it is a shift from last season.
Really?
It was entertaining, but I'm just the premise. I'm not really
I don't
into.
think he dug it last week, and I'm going to need a mustache combing break because I'm sad now.
Yeah, I purposely didn't listen to the season 1 episode because I didn't want to repeat the same shit intentionally. I wanted to kind of just have a fresh view of this season. So interesting.
Yes, I as well
have a vague memory of you two guys being reasonably into the last season, and I was the curmudgeonly bitch the whole time. But that's interesting.
I remember the last part.
No, I don't remember, but I probably gave it like a B- or something like that. But it's not that I hate it. I'm just not into it.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
It's entertaining enough for what it is, but it's a rather large undertaking for something that I'm not really super fond of.
I'm very similar. I'm very much on that motorcycle, dude. Kev, talk us into not shitting all over this for an hour.
What in the world is going on in the House of Nerd, dude? This is the House of N. What happened here? I can't believe that neither of you likes this series, but that always makes for a great episode of the podcast. So yes, I absolutely loved this season of this show. I thought the first season was good. I now want to go back and rewatch it, but I remember thinking that it was good, but not amazing. That possibly could have been because I wanted to see things that I didn't see. I'm not really sure of my recollection powers right now, but I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed this season 2. I thought it was just beautifully done, beautifully put together. I could see a lot of influences from a lot of places, and that didn't bother me. I thought the use of music, the soundtrack was just incredible. The score and the popular tunes that they used. Cinematography, fantastic. Actors, fantastic. Writing, fantastic. I mean, it's coming straight out of the comic book, so it's kind of hard to miss with the writing. But I just thought it was excellent.
Yeah, right.
Boom!
Well, I'll keep it short because I'm very much on Benny's motorcycle. But, my kind of high-level thoughts are the show's clearly super ambitious, and the production values are really high. So I definitely agree with you, Kev, in the sense that, the music and costumes and sets and settings are pretty highly polished. But I'm on Benny's motorcycle because I think at a high level, the story just isn't quite my flavor. And we'll get into that a little bit, but yeah, just...
I can't wait, yeah.
When we did the first season, I remember saying at the end that I didn't have any interest in future seasons, but I knew you were going to force me to watch them, and I kind of still have that feeling, but,
Well, luckily for you, there's not a ton of material from the comics to pull from, so I don't know how many more seasons there's going to be until they start writing some new ones, so...
Yeah, I don't know.
Get stoked about that for the time being. You have at least a year, okay?
So, yeah, I don't want to turn this into a shit session, but it just isn't my flavor, and I think that's fine. I think it's there's so much content on the various platforms these days and movies and whatnot that it's okay if something doesn't quite hit you in the right spot, and it just didn't hit me there.
Tickle you the right way. Yeah. All right. Okay. I'm with it. I don't really get, what don't you like about it though? Or should we shift it? Should we shift the magnifying lens over to Jarigo for a second?
Yeah.
And ask what he doesn't like about it.
Yeah, let me answer that question and sort of clarify my stance here. I think the show is really well done. I think the actors are great. I think it's well put together. I don't care about the characters at all. I don't give a fuck. Like, I just don't care. Like, all of their stories, I'm just like, whatever. I don't care about any of the characters. I don't care about Luther. I don't care about Carl. I don't care about Ben. I don't care about any of them. The only character I really like at all is Five.
Sure.
Okay.
And I like Reginald Hargraves, and
And Klaus is kind of funny and has an interesting kind of arc, but
yeah, I guess.
I love on this show when we have a tell us what you really think, Ben moment like that.
It's great. I generally agree. I generally agree.
I just don't care about their stupid little fucking soap opera stories. I'm just bored.
Yeah, it's totally fair.
I don't like it.
Too much whinging.
I don't know if there's whinging. It's just I don't care. Like, I don't fucking care that Luther is heartbroken about what's her face, and
No, I mean the characters whinging, like, about being heartbroken, like all that. Never mind, whatever. I was trying to do a crossover there, and it just failed miserably. So I'm going to copy that as a death.
It was
right. I don't know.
It was a let Ben fucking talk death.
I'm sure there's a few of those.
I love it when you're salty, Benny.
I don't even know if I'm salty. I just that's just how I feel about this show. I don't fucking care.
Fair enough.
I'll chime in with my kind of view on that similar issue, where I definitely had that same vibe, and then I kind of was like, all right, come on, you need to think about this more, because chances are the other guys are going to enjoy this, and so why do I not like it? Why do I not care? And I kind of feel like this show in particular, and kind of in general, I'm bored and fatigued of the everything resets at the end of a season or the end of a episode, whatever kind of, and it's very comic booky, comic books are known for Superman dies and then a year later he's not dead, kind of stuff. It's just, I'm kind of tired of resets, and it turns this into kind of like a sitcom where like every episode is just like a new fucking zany adventure that like has no fucking relevance and no consequences, and and it just kind of gets a little tired in a way.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that I'm pretty sure season 3 is going to be an apocalyptic time travel plot.
Probably.
Oh my god, I just want to sit here and listen to the two of you complain about this show, because that'll be incredibly entertaining for me for the next hour. It's already very funny.
I've got a note that just says like what I want. 1, I want the story to go somewhere, like have actual character arcs. 2, I want the story to go somewhere good. That's all I fucking want. Like, the fact that there weren't really character arcs and it kind of didn't really go anywhere, like, it just equals that boredom thing that you were talking about, Didn't make it the worst thing in the world. It didn't make it the best thing in the world. And the main kind of positives on the show are the production value and the care that was put into, the world building in terms of set design and costuming and musical choices, and like just the characters don't go anywhere. Like, there's minuscule amounts of development of the characters and minimum development of the story.
In terms of what? Them becoming better people or different people, or
yeah, like,
what do you mean by that?
It's just a group of dysfunctional siblings being dysfunctional for the sake of dysfunction, and
yeah,
you could take the development of each individual character over the course of the 2 seasons, like Vanya starts off meek and then ends up powerful, and then in this season she starts off meek and then ends up powerful, and like any of these characters take like 2 baby steps forward in their arc over 2 seasons. Like, it could have just been, I don't know, it could have just been one. We don't need fucking 30 hours for someone to be like, I'm a dick, but now I love this girl who's also a dick. It's like, cool. You're way more developed as a character now, Diego. Nice job. And then, like, I'm a fucking addict who is now a cult leader addict. Like, it just, there's some interesting stuff there. It just doesn't go anywhere fast enough, maybe. And maybe that's not fair, but it just,
Did you guys ever... Right. I'm with you. No. That's a fair point. Did you guys ever watch Sex and the City, the show?
No,
but I caught my dad watching it once when I came home drunk one night, and he was like snuggled up on a fucking love seat in the living room
Silk
watching
pillow?
it, and I was like, "What are you doing, man?" He's
was
like,
he crying?
"Oh, nothing," and like changed the channel, and it was really funny.
Just watching a show about steak and mustaches.
Yeah. And it was, I got a good kick out of it.
Which is ironically going to be the next news segment of the podcast. Steak and mustaches.
I'm down.
Okay, I did watch all of Sex and the City. I have zero problem admitting that. I thought that the show was incredibly well done. But that was my biggest gripe with that show, is the characters did the same thing every single week. Same thing.
Oh, it works?
All the time.
It works for me on Seinfeld. It works for me on certain types of shows, which is...
Well, Seinfeld's designed specifically to be like that, written like that the characters don't grow. That was one of the cardinal rules in the Bible. I'm with you on that. But like on Sex and the City, you had a really great opportunity with a show with 4, pretty powerful women. And it was like... I just felt like there just was no growth sometimes. And I was like, what is going on here? And it really drove me crazy. So from that standpoint, I totally understand where you're coming from. I think that my only gripe about Umbrella Season 2 was that it was, quote, the same story as the first one. When he said, oh, there's an apocalypse in 10 days, I was like, oh, man, really? And then as I went through it, because I watched the whole season 1.5 times, it's like quantum realities, right? So as I watched it through the first time, like initially, again, I was like, kind of eye roll, like it's the same story. And then as they went through it, I was like, well, this is a very plausible quantum reality. And I guess the quote twist at the end was that, their very presence in that timeline is what created the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the JFK thing, which is what I thought originally. I think it was all of the events and all of their just being there and intermingling with people there, and Allison marrying Ray Chestnut and all of that stuff, and Jack Ruby, blah, 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 blah. So in the sense of quantum realities, I was like, okay, this is cool. I could see this. Like in the sense of like, okay, I just went to great energy and lengths to teleport everybody out of the original horrible situation. And it's like, okay, here we are again. And now we've got the same problem. So if you look at it a little bit deeper, it's kind of like, well, if you go back in time 10 times and do different things, is the outcome always the same? Like you're going to screw up the timeline or cause some huge event or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's how I view that. That's my long-winded answer to that.
Yeah, so it's telling a similar story but unfolding it in a different way, and there's some interesting parts to it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think from like your guys' perspective, like what's not working is like, there's funny moments in it, and like Klaus in particular, like starts a cult and all of that sort of thing. So it's like I can totally see why you're just kind of like, whatever, And I did think that there was some growth with him between season 1 and season 2. I think it could have been a little bit more though.
I think that's it. There's a little bit of growth, but there's 30 to 40 hours of 2 seasons of a show. Just to tell the same story twice and for all of the characters to have minimal amounts of growth, and I've spent 35 hours watching it. It's just like equals lack of interest, versus something like The Boys or High Castle or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I liked some of the story elements. I liked the Kennedy thing. It's just the development stuff and the repetitious stuff that wasn't quite as much of a turn on for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What next, Teagues?
Are we sticking to format? Are we getting? We've gone high level. Or are we going into some nitty gritty stuff now?
Can do, bro.
Yeah,
we've sort of already gone there.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I'm not going to bitch about everything. I really did enjoy the soundtrack and the use of music, even though it sort of amounted to a lot of like creating a bunch of montages.
Right. Yeah.
I was sort of okay with that because I didn't have to listen to anybody bitching about their situation. Not doing anything about it.
And it kind of fit. It fit with the vibe of the show. Yeah.
Yeah, it fits with the vibe of the show. For instance, I was delightfully surprised to hear "I Was Made for Loving You" by Kiss used during a fight scene. I mean,
so great. I will only permit the montages because I do not have to listen to you speak.
It's a fair point. And I like that there was some covers in there too. Like either they couldn't secure the rights or they just wanted to make a different flavored cover of stuff, which I kind of enjoyed.
Yep, Wicked Game and Crazy, and possibly one more. But I thought the montages were good because it moved the story along well and kind of filled in bits that we didn't get to see. So I was fine with that.
Kind of on the musical tip, I really enjoyed how Klaus would quote really shitty pop songs, and that was his kind of,
message to the world. Yeah,
I thought that was quite funny.
God, yeah,
that was funny, man.
And how stupid it was,
especially from TLC.
Yeah, don't go. I have so much hatred for that Waterfall song that was I got a kick out of that.
I know you do. I think a lot of people do. I know I did. I mean, it was a really fantastic opportunity to utilize some really great tracks from the era and, in and around the era as well, while also peppering in some, like you said, some covers and some more contemporary music. And I thought that they just did a really, really good job with it. I mean, this whole season to me looks and feels like the opening to Watchmen. That is something that is 100%.
Yeah, they nailed the 60s feel.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, the beginning of Watchmen, it's very, very similar with the songs and, kind of montaging through events that have happened. And that's what the season feels like to me. The way it looks, the use of the music, a lot of that. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. Like, clearly the guy was influenced by Snyder. And I think it's, as a whole, it really comes out as just a really beautiful piece, man. The music, the cinematography, I thought was fantastic as well. So
yeah, you mentioned like influences and stuff, and I definitely feel like there's some pretty clear influences, and some of them are really on the nose, but I kind of, like you, think it was fine because they were clearly like homages to stuff they really loved, like the one that jumps out at me as like the most on the nose, which I kind of have a little bit of an issue with, was the one where number one was bare knuckle boxing and then Golden Brown came on. So it was like lifting straight from Snatch, like even the song that was playing from that scene in Snatch. But there's tons and tons and tons of those homages.
Yeah, you're right. And that was my one only sort of quasi gripe on the music was Golden Brown.
I love that song, but like it was used perfectly in Snatch during a bare knuckle boxing scene, and to do the same thing again, it was just kind of like, well, I know what you're going for, but pick a different song.
Which fight scene are we talking about?
I think it was in the Umbrella season. I think it was when the first one with number one in the ring with Jack Ruby's bar, or maybe the second fight in Jack Ruby's bar. One of the two.
Got it. Yeah, I think it was the second.
I didn't really get much of this when I watched it the first time, but I saw some people's reactions and reviews and stuff in the last week bitching. Maybe bitching's a strong term, but let's just say it anyways. Bitching about the opening action sequence being a bit of a tease. I enjoyed that opening like crazy fight where, Klaus has got an army of dead people and, Vanya stops a tank round and all that crazy Avengers style action. But I kind of feel like they were going for the Avengers piss take in that opening sequence, but it seems like a lot of people were like expecting there to be a bunch more action. Did you guys have any sort of initial reactions to that or frustrations with the lack of heavy action? Or
I thought it was uncharacteristic of the show, like that whole thing. I was like, well, this is kind of interesting, but this isn't really what we've there's not really a whole lot of action outside of like hand-to-hand combat kind of stuff going on with Diego and company and Five and such. I think in the first season you get to see them as little kids sort of, breaking up that bank robbery or whatever, and there's some badassness going on there for sure. But yeah, that sort of Avengers style thing that was going on at the opening there was that, I don't know. I mean, it was cool, but I didn't think it was very. I didn't think there was going to be more action because of it. That's, I guess, really all that matters here.
That's exactly how I felt.
I loved it. I thought the opening was great. It was cool to see them all kind of firing on full thrusters, as it were, like working together as a unit. Like, kind of, it's like you kind of like wonder if they grew up enough and got their shit together enough, if they would do that. And that was sort of a glimpse of that. But at the same time, I wasn't waiting for more of that through the rest of it. I think my younger self probably would have been, but
yeah,
I wasn't at all. I was fine with it. I thought it was great. It was really cool to watch, but that's not really how this show rolls. I can't really speak about the comic and how close this is to the comic book, but the show doesn't roll like that. So I was fine with it. I mean, I don't know. In some senses, I guess I could say that, yeah, it would be great if there was some more action. But, I mean, there was a couple of really excellent fight scenes in this season. The one with, Dad and Diego at the beginning, and then the one with the Swedes that look like those weird guys from I Come in Peace with Dolph Lundgren from the 80s. Yo!
I was going more for the Lebowski Nihilists, but I'm feeling you.
Yeah, so we'll say it's a cross between the two.
There you go.
Kind of, right? That was like, God, that movie was so terrible.
I said, "We'll cut off your Johnson."
Totally, dude. I love the alien from that movie was like, I come in peace, and Dolph Lundgren, and you go in pieces. That's the only memorable part of the movie.
That's amazing.
Oh, it was so dumb. I mean, talk about your one-liner, Jesus. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. It was just stupid nonsense from the 80s, I guess. But, yeah, some really excellent fight scenes, man. And I don't know, the psychodrama element of it, like, I like that, man. I like that it was like that. I get where you guys are coming from, that it's not as interesting as it could be, perhaps. But, we are talking about younger people. I don't know if maybe not. No, it's kind of, shouldn't say that.
I don't know. Maybe my family dynamic was just a little bit like lukewarm. It never really got like screamy and shouty. Like it was just like medium. But like you hear or see on Reddit threads sometimes people being like, yeah, like my boyfriend or girlfriend is like scream argues with me, and it really freaks me out because I don't know, and like his whole family just screams at each other all the time, and it's super dysfunctional, and I kind of get the feeling that the creator of this is just like came from a really scream heavy family, and so like all these people ever do is just like dysfunctionally yell at each other and like stamp their feet, and it just kind of is fatiguing, I suppose.
Definitely and there's Gerard. Here you go, everybody. He's sleeping.
What were you just talking about?
I've never had someone sleep in agreement before.
Yeah, right. It was good. But I'm sorry, I don't really recall any like constant screaming going on during the course of the season.
No, but they're always just like, I hate you. And they're like, I hate you. And it's like, remember that time that I hated you? And they're like, yeah, then I hated you. And okay.
And then I hated you some more.
Like, I think one of my, like, I almost fucking, like, threw my computer across the room when Vanya was like, I really need your help, guys. And they're all like, nah, fuck you, Vanya. And then they, like, all get into the car, Scooby-Doo style, like, a minute later, like, just kidding, Vanya. We think you're swell. And it's just like, fucking Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, come on, man. I don't think this is nearly as terrible as you guys think.
Well, no. I'm only, like, recollecting moments that were terrible. Like, in the whole series, like, it wasn't horrible. But there were moments where I was like, holy crap, dude.
Yeah, fair enough, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe it was cheesy, and I just wasn't feeling it, dude. I thought that was a great scene. There was a lot of great scenes, that really worked well. Like, I mean, you talk about characters developing, not developing. I mean, like, look at what Vanya went through. It's like having amnesia and then, developing that entire relationship with that woman to the point where, they fall in love and they have a whole thing. Like, that was really, really well written and really well shot. And there's just some really incredible moments in that whole arc that I thought were fantastic, man. And, really for her, having gone through what she went through, it's like, basically destroying the world, then coming back in time, having amnesia, and then everybody being like, yeah, I don't know if I should tell you if you destroyed the world. That was kind of a big deal. I mean, I get it. There was a little bit of a, where are the Scooby Snacks moment with the car, but I don't know. I thought it was cool. Everybody was kind of like, yeah, we got your back.
And the amnesia thing's a bit tropey, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, maybe it was a little tropey. I guess you're right. I don't know. Maybe I was blinded by all the eye candy, dude.
There was a lot of eye candy, definitely.
I'm starting to question my own nerdery here.
Nah, don't let us convince you otherwise, man. What did you, with a bit of a change of tack, what did you think of Lila? Because I really, really loved her as a shit talker in the asylum with Diego, and then like as things unfold, she becomes like a major plot element in terms of the major part of the story. So I'm just curious what you thought about that whole thing.
I liked her. She was interesting.
Did the like honeypot bullshit annoy you, or the like being the daughter of the handler thing annoy you, or was it just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever?
That didn't super annoy me, not compared to like the rest of the way the story intertwines and the way the rest of things seem to be. One thing is related to the other is no, it didn't really annoy me.
Yeah,
it didn't glare at me as like something that was really sticking out in contrast to the rest of the story.
Yeah, being all over the place
and the rest of the kind of writing. The fact that they sort of tied that up with a bow and made that all. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't. Did it bother you?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think I get a little bit like, I've spoken about it before, where I tend to like really, for whatever reason, get super absorbed in a show or film and like invested in it to the point where I kind of, I don't know, tend to not pay super close attention until I get pulled out of the story through like an error or something that bothers me. And I was like super pumped for Diego. I was just like, fuck yeah, dude, you've met this cool girl who like can keep up with you and hold her own. And then all of a sudden, she's the baddie, and then she's the fucking daughter of the other baddie. And it's like, I just kind of would have preferred that she comes in and becomes part of the cast without needing to be like a MacGuffin, maybe. But I guess you make a good point in terms of it not being overly complicated in comparison to all of the rest of the complexity.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot of tying things up behind the scenes sort of, going on in this show in general. So it just didn't strike me as like, it didn't, I mean, ultimately I probably wouldn't, I would agree with you, but at the same time, I'm like, I was just like, oh, of course she is,
Your give a shit meter was pretty low at that point.
It wasn't surprising. Yeah. I'm like, oh, of course she's involved with it. Oh, of course she's a honeypot. Yeah. Like it just, I don't know. It wasn't like I didn't see it coming or I was surprised or,
Yeah.
I was a little surprised at the depth that it went to because I didn't see it at the beginning, but then I don't know. I found her kind of annoying.
Really? I liked her.
Yeah. I mean, kind of. And then I don't know. I like how Five got wise to her real quick and was basically like, if you come around me, the next time I see you, I'm going to kill you. I loved it. It was like straight and to the point. But I in terms of the plot device, I mean, I thought that was fine. I liked the way it was woven. I thought it was kind of interesting that the handler had like her own secret, one of the like super children stashed away for all these years.
Yeah.
But I definitely was not into the, I'm like Rogue and every power is my power.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, come on, really?
Yeah, the climactic battle was kind of left me a bit wanting, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. But so I think that was my only gripe with it. I mean, I thought as a plot devices and the way they wrote the story, I think it all worked fine,
Yeah.
Guys, hang on a second. Folks, we're going to be getting right back to the nerdery in a second, but I just had to take a quick break because I want to thank everybody so much for tuning into the show. We put a lot of work into it, and we really love doing it. And if you like the show, there's a couple of great ways you can support the show. First, you can rate us and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also tell someone to check out the show. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful, incredibly important, and we really appreciate it. Thanks so much for tuning into the show, and now back to the mayhem.
Benny, at what point did you give up? Because one of the first things that I wrote down watching the show was time jumps, ! Ben's favorite.
Oh, nice. Good note.
I wonder if how much that played a part in the early frustrations, or whether you're just like, whatever.
Well, when a movie does a time jump and it's literally just to be like 20 years later, you know what I mean? That annoys me. The entire plot of this show has been about time jumps. So it's integral to the story. It's not like it's not like and many years later, or, you know, that kind of a thing.
Right.
Like it's like it bothered me in World War or whatever the hell that
Generation War,
yeah, where it's like, you know, X amount of years later, and they just sort of gloss over, you know, all the stuff that happened.
That's what really bothered me about The Witcher as well.
That's what bothers me.
Yeah.
But this is just, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean.
No, I think that was more, I'm not sure what I meant, so I wanted to clarify, because it was either what you just said, which is like time jumps that gloss over is what annoys you and what you call quote unquote time jumps,
right?
Or whether the amount of just infinite time jumping here sent you into a fucking frenzy.
Yeah, I mean, I do get annoyed when, you know, when certain films and shows do a lot of, like, you know, hopping about, or, you know, like starting at the end and then, you know, jumping back and then go, you know, like when they hop all over the place in time. That does kind of piss me off in some cases.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, that's just sort of what this show is. So yeah, maybe that does play into it as well. I don't know.
Yeah,
for my dislike, but no, I don't think so. It's the characters that I don't like them.
I love it.
Just don't relate to them at all. I don't even think they don't seem to have any depth to me. Like, there's no reason for me to care about them.
Yeah, I'm down, bro. I'm still on your motorcycle.
They just seem fucking petty.
Like what? Like, give me an example. Like, what do you mean, buddy?
They don't ever seem to get over their core disputes.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, they're constantly squabbling about the same shit that you would imagine they've been squabbling about their entire lives.
Yeah.
And they just, you know, it doesn't seem to take anything to set any one of them off.
That's very much what I was getting at with the character arc thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, Kev, you made a good, we don't need to retread it, but you made a great point with the Vanya falling in love being like quite a development of her character. And so, like,
right.
Maybe it's not character arc so much as they always fall back to that same, you know, core issue that clearly comes from their fucked up youths, and they never get past any of it. And it gets pretty frustrating.
I guess, but I mean, I'm having a really hard time. Like, what are you talking about? Because I'm not even remembering anything like that. Like, I'm not remembering any squabbling. Certainly not like the first season. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not remembering, like, you know, Luther. You know, I mean, again, he kind of moved on in the sense that he was like, you know, again, I know this isn't what you're talking about, but he was like, you know, I like my life here. Like, you know, F off. I'm not helping you. Like, go away. But then at the same time, you know, he's kind of whinging about Allison sort of later, which is sort of similar to the first season. But
or like Diego is constantly trying to be, you know, heroic, and Five is constantly giving him shit and being like, you're not, you know, it's all bullshit. And it's like it's almost like they each have one thing that they get teased about by one other of their siblings, and it's just a constant teasing of that one thing over and over and over and over.
Right, as though they never grew up.
I suppose. And that's kind of the point of the show. And so, because the point of the show is there's a bunch of man and women children that never grow up and have daddy issues because their dad's a fucking psychotic alien dickhead, like, it's the whole point of the show is this. And, like, if that doesn't resonate with me, then it just means the show's not my flavor. It doesn't mean it's a bad show.
Sure, fair enough.
Yeah, very well said.
Okay.
The shifting gears again, which I don't know if we need to spend a ton of time on it, but one of the other early notes I've got on episode 2 was the show's style is 10 times better than what John Wick tried to do in terms of the like 50s kind of 60s stuff. So I remember on the John Wick episodes where I was like, yeah, you know, I remember Kev in particular, you were really stoked on what they did in the where they did all of the like analog computery stuff and all of the ladies with the red lipsticky stuff.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's like super 50s-ish and super swing dancey, and you talked about how much you enjoyed that.
Yes, ambiguous era, like ambiguous time frame. You don't know when exactly it is. Yes.
But it's got like a really interesting style, and I wasn't super stoked on that in the John Wick stuff, but I feel like this hit the bullseye on that. The commission in particular, like, is just such a fantastically well-constructed style that it was kind of interesting that it threw back to that John Wick stuff.
Yes, no, I agree with that. You know, again, more glimpses into the commission. And I mean, you know, again, in the show's defense, like, you know, we're getting, you know, more pieces of the puzzle, like via the characters, the commission, all of that. So it's like slowly we're getting a little bit more and a little bit more, you know, and in that sense, season 3 may be, you know, will reveal even more than that. And, you know, perhaps some things will click with other viewers like yourselves.
Please God, because I'll be watching it, I'm sure.
And they might enjoy it. I mean, I think I just thinking about like what you guys are saying. And I think I was just thinking about Klaus because I found his, like in the first season, I was like, okay, like in the beginning, it was like, you know, I drink to forget that I see dead people, you know, and I found that tiresome by the end of the first season for sure. But in this season, I feel like, you know, he came back as one of the first earlier in time and had to, you know, figure something out and, you know, basically went sober and like did all of these different things. And, you know, he was still very much attached to that idea of, well, not that idea of, but the whole being in love with Dave, the guy that he met in Vietnam. And I almost went back and watched that part of season 1 because I couldn't remember how that all doped out, how he got into Vietnam. But I do remember him falling in love with the guy. And I thought that, you know, him trying to essentially save his one love's life was pretty growth worthy, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that plus being sober, I was like, I actually enjoyed him a lot this season, whereas last season it was like, give me more heroin, need another bottle of booze. And I was like, come on, you know, like, but this time around, I was digging it more. I mean, they still had the same elements with the character of being, you know, kind of flighty and, you know, kind of all over the place, a little manic, if you will. But, you know, he didn't have the drinking going with it, at least through most of it. But the scene when he... when he did go into the liquor store was awesome, man. Played with Styx playing underneath, which was just fantastic, man. I always forget what a great band Styx is.
Yeah.
So I thought there was good growth there, and I really wanted to see more of Ben, and I got to see a ton of Ben in this one, you know, and his relationship with Klaus and all of that, man. I thought it was very, very cool, you know, and the whole thing about the possession, and I was like, oh, this is like a cool, interesting, you know, story element that we're going to see hopefully more of, you know, and really, really like that a lot.
Yeah, I think the Klaus-Ben story stuff was, well, the Klaus-Ben story stuff and the number 5 Kennedy stuff were like the 2 strongest parts of the season for me, for sure. So I agree.
I agree. I mean, 5 is like definitely great. Love him. Probably my favorite. I really liked where the Vanya story went. I gotta say, Ben, I wish you had never mentioned that thing about that Kristin Wiig Saturday Night Live sketch about the baby with the Lawrence Welk show. I watched like 4 of those the other night when you sent me the message, and then every time, so I watched a bunch of them,
and I'm Doomies.
And then I went back and started rewatching this season again because I was, you know, wanted to just absorb it some more, and I couldn't stop thinking about that. I just Kristin Wiig with the head and the weird teeth, like just kept like almost creeping into the frame from the side a lot of the times when she was on camera, man. It was It really messed with my head, bro.
Well, now you know how I feel.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. But I think that to wrap up what I was saying, 5, the Klaus storyline and Vanya's storyline, I really, really enjoyed the whole relationship with Sissy. I thought it was fantastic, man. And also, with the autistic boy, the whole thing, man, just really, really great. I mean, Luther, I like that he was like, no, I like my life here. And I like that he was an enforcer for Jack Ruby, but I didn't really see a ton beyond that, I guess. I'm like so hyper focused on this idea of like no character growth now. I'm trying to like, whatever. I'm looking deeper and deeper into it. But I mean, yeah, there wasn't really much more, I guess, there. He's kind of like a big mopey kind of lost puppy kind of guy, I guess. And Allison, I don't know. You had to either dig that she was in the civil rights movement or not.
I dug it, but like as a character, she would know the result of it. So there's not much stakes there for her, I guess. But
yeah,
it's kind of vanity in a way. I get it. I buy into the fact that she'd want to be part of the movement for sure. And like,
also, doesn't she have like a kid?
Yeah, she does.
She did in 2019. Right. Yeah,
which just she seemed to completely forget that.
I agree with you, man. In the sense that there was never even one mention of like, oh, I miss my daughter, all that, because she was clearly there for like 1 to 2 full years before everybody got back together.
Yeah. She did mention the kid at the end, saying that she was going to go and see the kid, but it was like in the last fucking episode.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, I did like, like when she finds Klaus at the mansion, and she's like, I haven't used my powers in well over a year. She's like, I really like who I've become without them, not relying on my powers to get what I want all the time. She's like, I've been earning everything and I'm really digging that. I dug that a lot. I thought that was cool for sure.
But I want to jump in though, because that's my issue. My issue is she's really stoked about not having to use her powers anymore. And she gets that, like, she's, an influencer in season 1 who uses her powers to become world famous. Season 2, she doesn't use her powers. She's grown as a person. She's joined the civil rights movement, and she's really happy and proud of who she is. And then she uses her fucking powers. And then she, like, deletes all of that progress of the character or whatever. And same with Klaus. Like, so Klaus is, a washed up, addict, and then he cleans up, and then he goes to the fucking liquor store. Like it seems like they all make progress and then just revert back.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I didn't see it that way. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think that they were assimilating because, he went on a bender, and then he, when all those followers were chasing him out of the mansion, he just chucks that giant brown bag full of booze bottles and keeps one. But I didn't really feel him, he wasn't like back on a bender where he was like on heroin and booze all the time after that.
Dude, he spent half of episode 9 lying in a puddle of his own puke. Like he was fully on a fucking bender.
Well, no, that was the puke when he puked Ben out.
I know,
right?
I know. But I don't think either of the viewpoints are incorrect. I do think there was a fair bit of character development, and I do think there was a fair bit of character regression, and you could argue a third point, which is both of those things together make for an interesting, plot and an interesting show, but it just didn't sink in for me, I guess. So I feel like we're quickly approaching the beating a dead horse territory here, but I definitely hear what you're saying.
Yeah, let's move on. That's fine. I could keep going, but let's move on.
Speaking of which, my next note is very appropriate for what just happened, which is the show is taking too long to get to the fucking point. So,
dude, that's the same topic. Come on.
We touched. No, I just wanted to throw that in there because it was too perfect.
Fair enough. I'm just trying to think what else. You know what? One thing I was confused about. This is more of a question that you may or may not know the answer to. Like, what's up with Diego and the knives? Does he manifest the knives, or does he always carrying X amount of knives with him? I'm starting to get confused about that.
This is something that they seem to clarify. He seems to have control over objects. I think he carries the knives, but the reason he's able to like throw them so well or whatever is that he can sort of control them with his mind or whatever. They show him stopping bullets and doing things like that. So, he apparently has some kind of like telekinesis or whatever.
Okay, and then he also throws the knife, and it goes on like a 90-degree angle in midair when they're having dinner in the tiki lounge with Dad.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about something that was great. Was seeing way more Colm Feore in this season than we did in the first season. So we get to find out a lot about Reginald Hargreaves, including the fact that he's an alien, which totally blew me away at the end. I had no idea that that was the deal.
It sort of hinted at it in the first season, didn't they?
Did they?
It's been a while, probably. I don't recall, but I'm sure they did.
I don't know. I don't remember a ton about the first season.
It wasn't like explicit, but it was, I think, hinted at. If I recall. Anyways,
so what did you guys think about that? I really liked seeing more of him. I also thought that the things that he was doing were, I still couldn't quite figure out what exactly his motivations were, because it was like he was part of the Majestic 12, but he was saying like, oh no, we shouldn't kill Kennedy. And, then to find out that he's an alien was also very interesting. I loved watching him fight Diego. I thought that was fantastic. And meeting, the template for what would become Mom later on, Grace, was really cool as well. What did you guys think about that? I love Colm Feore. I was stoked when I saw that he was Reg in the first season, but bummed that we didn't really get to see a lot of screen time with him. So I was really stoked to see more of him.
I think my only complaint is that there wasn't more.
Still not enough?
It sort of ties into the taking forever to get to the fucking point. Yeah. They've been teasing at stuff, and I would like to have seen more. I'd like to know more about what's going on with Reginald Hargreaves and the fact that he's an alien and all of that. There was more this time, but I don't know. It's one of the parts of the story that I'm curious about and actually interested in, and still not really getting much of it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just how the story is written. Maybe that's that sort of war that you don't get a whole lot of backstory on, that you're left to wonder about. But it's one of the only things that I actually do wonder about in the show, and I'd like to know more about it.
It's like, I'll comment on Colm Feore in a moment, but what just came to mind is and this is, a stupid way to put an analogy together for it, but just bear with me. If we were able to go back in time and do something a la the show, I think that combining the key story and character elements of these two seasons into one season of Saving from Armageddon would probably have equaled a much better show. So, I kind of feel like there's no Colm Feore really in season 1, and you're kind of like, oh, I want more Colm Feore. And then season 2 is basically setting up to give you all that stuff in the next season, I would imagine. So I kind of get the vibe of Colm Feore is an alien, and I get the stranded alien vibe. He wants the space tech so he can kind of get his ass back to where he came from, and he doesn't care about the kind of ramifications of what that means, but also doesn't want to be a dick and kill Kennedy. But the other people that he needs on board with him to get his goal do want to kill Kennedy, and so when they double cross him, he fucking takes the room down, So all of the Colm Feore stuff could have been one season, and the fact that there's 5 or 6 siblings, and there's 5 or 6 stories, and then there's
7 siblings,
whatever the fuck there are, and then there's the fucking monkey, and then there's the robot mom, and then there's the fucking Hazel and Cha-Cha, and there's so much stuff going on, which is interesting, but there's just too much stuff, and you probably could have distilled the 2 seasons down into one season, and it would have been fuck, that's great TV. I'm really excited to see where the alien goes next season.
I don't understand that. Wait, hold on, Chad. Wait, I don't understand that statement. So you're saying, on the one hand, there's too much going on, but and then on the other hand, you're saying, well, let's just distill it all down into one season. Well, then you're going to have even more going on. That. Then I think it would be disjointed. You know what I mean?
That's fine, but
you're not going to have enough time to tell anything.
The specifics of what I'm trying to get at is maybe the adaptation of the comic isn't as true to the comic. I don't know. I don't care. I'm sure that some of the fans of the comic will be like, no, there needs to be everybody. But, from a storytelling perspective, Netflix gives the 3 of us $100 million and says, make this into a show.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the knowledge of what we've just seen because we're going back in time, fucking bear with the stupid analogy. I would argue for maybe there's less siblings. Maybe, there's no handler and Hazel and Cha-Cha fulfill the same role. Maybe there's no Lila and this, that, and the other. Like, you could simplify things and still accomplish some really interesting storytelling with things like Hargreaves being an alien and a setup for interstellar whatever, and, you know, these kids all born on the same day having superpowers. That's interesting. And, like, you could do something with it without, like, sucking the comic's dick, you know? And it just... It seems like they got caught up in recreating the comic, you know, to the detriment of the storytelling, which, you know, may or may not be accurate, but, like, that's the vibe I get. And the Colm Feore example you gave, I think, is a great example where if you took him from season 1 and season 2 and put it all into one story, it's like, okay, cool, now I want to know what's next with Hargreaves, you know?
Right.
But because it's so spread out, you're just kind of like Ben said, left wanting more, you know?
Right. And thinking about it now, as we're, you know, an hour, whatever, into the show, I definitely find that I'm more curious about Reginald Hargreaves and more into knowing what he's doing than the 7 kids.
Than the family therapy session? Yeah, totally.
Right, correct.
The other thing, too, is that, you know, I did a little bit of reading on Wiki about the comic book series, and it's like there's 2 limited runs, and then they're working on, or rather the latest one was released, I think, just in 2018, or 2019, last year. So there's not a ton of material to pull from, but they are staying faithful to the comic series. So I think what I'm finding interesting in this episode is listening to you guys talk about how, you know, either the characters don't go anywhere, there's not enough development, whatever you want to call it, and how this is the way that the stories are written in the comic books. And these books, these are Dark Horse books. They're very popular. One of them won like best limited run of the year when it came out. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by all that. Like, you know, if the comic story is the same, this is the same as the comic ostensibly, then I find that very interesting, you know?
I read the synopses of the comics, and it seems like this show is a departure in the sense that my understanding is the comics are way crazier, even though they hit a lot of the same beats.
Crazier in the sense of what?
Just like a lot more weird shit is going on. Like, I can't remember specifically with the Kennedy thing, but it's like the plot of that book is Five needs to go back and stop the Kennedy assassination. So it's, as opposed to the Kennedy thing being kind of a subplot of it's the main plot of the other one, and there is no handler. There's only the fucking Goldfish Bowl guy, and the Goldfish Bowl guy is the handler of Five, and there's like a whole bunch of really weird shit too. Like, I can't even remember, to be honest, but just like, imagine everything that we already know, and then just like the reasoning behind it is even more fantastical or a little bit weird. So I do think you're right that does stick reasonably closely to the comics, even though I haven't read them. But based on the synopses, like, I feel like the show definitely elevates the source material, but I still feel like it's not kind of simplifying the source material or distilling the source material enough to make it, you know, accessible, I guess. I don't know.
Well, fair enough. I think that I didn't read any of the synopses, and just listening to what you said, that sounds better than what we got in season 2.
Well, it sounds like the shows are better than the comic, but I haven't read them. But
it sounds like the shows are better than the comic, because what you just described to the comic I'd rather have seen Fishbowl guy be the handler and more of him than the handler.
Sure.
You know?
Speaking of another thing that just like Carmichael, the fishbowl head guy, that was like a nothing burger.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that looks interesting, seeing like trailers, etc. And then, you know, in the show, it's just, there's nothing. They spent zero time with him.
No, that's what I mean, Ben. Yeah. Like, I would rather have seen...
It's designed for the sake of design.
Well, it was designed for the sake of the show, is to have the handler play a larger role. I mean, look, we see this all the time when we do a show or a film that comes from a book, you know, and one or all of us is always unhappy. And, you know, a lot of people out there would be, and that's fine. I would rather have seen more Fishbowl head than the handler, you know, like that sounds way more interesting to me than the way they did it in the show. So I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, just something that came to mind about the first season's comic is the bad guy in the first season is supposed to be the conductor of the orchestra who tries to turn Vanya into the instrument that causes Armageddon, and so like it's like an evil conductor is the guy responsible for Armageddon. So like it's a great example of like a who gives a shit, glad they cut that kind of silly reason for something,
right?
If that makes sense. And so I feel like the comics had some of those in there that the creators of the show pruned out for the benefit of the show. So they definitely did a decent job of elevating things for sure. But
now I'm really curious about the comics too.
Well, there's only fucking 2 of them or 3 of them, so you could probably read them in an afternoon.
No, there's 2 or 3 in a limited run. Really, that's it?
Yeah, they're like, I think they're like trades. I think it's something like a season 1 is a single issue, I don't know, 7 comic equivalent trade. And
sure.
Same for season 2 and upcoming season 3, and then they're doing a 4th one that hasn't been finished yet, I believe. Anyways,
yes, they are. Yes. So, where to next on this interesting episode?
I'm basically up to nuggets at this point, so maybe we kind of come to the latter half of the season.
I'm basically up to done.
Well, I mean, in the sense of my notes, like
you're up to done. Ben noped out at the beginning. Let's wrap it up.
I don't have any notes for episodes 7, 8, or 9, so it's maybe more like touching on some of the higher level plot points of the end of the season from my perspective. Unless you guys have some notes.
No, I already talked about the fight scenes. I really enjoyed the scene with Reg and Five at the bar. I thought that was really cool, kind of little interlude there off to the side, very, very cool. I did like the reveal that, once again, Vanya was sort of the cause of the apocalypse, and that, they did stop it. Ben stopped it essentially. And I loved the way that like he was able to just finally be free and move on.
That was cool.
I thought that was really great way to end him all. And at the same time, I was really sad to see him go. Like I really started to enjoy him as a character with Klaus. I love the whole idea of him being able to possess Klaus's body and, just a lot of cool things there. So I don't know. Sad to see him go. I thought that was cool.
But you didn't see him go.
Well, don't worry. He's alive in the alternate future they showed up in, so you'll get more of him next season, apparently.
Yes.
Sparrow Academy. We 7 superhero characters wasn't complicated enough. Now there's 14.
Oh my god. That is going to be weird.
Shoot me now.
Yeah. Okay. So oh my god. All right. Ben's dead.
I'm dead of lamenting having to watch the next season of this show.
I think that yeah, okay. They go back to the alternate Hill Valley clearly at the end, and it's whatever. Mr. Strickland with a shotgun, all that.
I really like the Kennedy stuff, man. I don't know. I just like it was a perfectly fitting conspiracy theory-ish thing for the time frame they were in. I enjoyed that a lot.
No doubt. No doubt.
And the 5 going back to hang out with old 5 minus all the farting stuff, but like it was entertaining.
The farting was so stupid.
Yeah, but
that was dumb.
The old 5, young 5 stuff was interesting, and the Kennedy, grassy knoll stuff.
The one thing I didn't get was that they talked about not being too close to each other, and then they were like literally having a fight. It's like, you know what I mean? I was like, that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, this is not the only thing that didn't make sense, so I just let it go.
Okay. All right.
Well, I think like in terms of the plot stuff, like the the fact that Hargreaves was a dick to this particular group of older children, which clearly sets him up to not choose them when he has to choose them and then ends up with the Sparrow Academy or whatever. Like, despite the fact that doubling the number of people in next season is going to be challenging, as we just discussed, it's kind of funny that he was so turned off by these people that he changed his mind when he was picking kids. I just thought that was kind of funny. Like, he hated these people just as much as we hated these people.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just like, I'm going to pick other kids because fuck you guys.
There will be no whinging at the Sparrow Academy.
But yeah, I guess, to put another turd in the pile of shits that I'm throwing here, the the final fight sequence where there's like 6,000 people with briefcases that all get blown over in 2 seconds in like a Peter Jackson battle sequence. I was kind of like, yeah, whatever.
I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know. It was okay. I thought it was kind of neat. I like the whole idea of Herb and the resistance inside the commission, you know?
That was
pretty
cool.
Neat.
Yeah.
And Herb was a good character. I love how you're like, I hate this show. And then every time I bring it up, you're like, oh, yeah, that was cool.
I don't hate the show. Half of the show was annoying and the other half was really good. The nerds in the commission were really good. I liked them.
Oh my God. All right. We better get on to the NDR here before something happens. I'm still just amazed at you guys, your livid hatred of this season of television.
I don't hate it, but I'm clearly like in a grumpy mood because it's all I'm talking about is the bits I don't like.
I know, and I know that Ben really doesn't like it, and that's fine. But
before the show, I was like, I need to hang back and not talk a lot because all I'm going to do is poo-poo this thing, and that clearly didn't work.
Right? Yeah, whatever. It makes for good content, possibly. We'll find out in the edit.
Hopefully,
yeah. All right, so Nuggets deaths ratings.
Yeah, I got a few.
Two.
What do you guys got?
I got two super nerdy. Everybody Kev's nuggets.
Benny, you got any nuggets?
I purposefully don't do nuggets or try not to do nuggets because I thought that was supposed to be your thing, Chad.
No, it's it's open.
It's
open season on the nuggets. A few episodes ago, I think we determined that it's open season on nuggets. So feel free to bring nuggets anytime you want, bro.
Whatever.
It's like an ever evolving, ambiguous kind of situation.
Yeah, the third season of the show is just going to be a supercut of our conversation about how and who we do nuggets.
Yes, exactly.
And we have a mid-show death, the late show death, everybody.
And what is that death?
Poorly executed nuggets joke. All right, well, I'll go first. A non-mind-blowing but kind of interesting production nugget was the snow around the barn when the kid is being possessed or whatever at the end. Just before.
Was it painted cornflakes?
Was not painted cornflakes, Ben. Good call though. It was actually like a weather accident where they had a freak snowstorm and they were like, fuck it, let's just write it into the show. So they wrote that bit in.
Oh, come on. For real?
Yeah, it was interesting.
Wow. That is really interesting.
All right, you go.
That really, really made it added a really cool element to that scene.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay, my first super nerd out, everybody Kev's nugget is, as we all know, the Zapruder film was the
Back into the Left.
Back into the Left was the film, of Kennedy that's so famous, right?
Yep.
In this show, it was not Abraham Zapruder, it was Dan Frankel who got the footage. And that was the footage that Hazel slipped into Five's pocket, blah, blah, blah. They watch it later, and who's the guy that plays Dan Frankel? It's the guy that played Fletch's wife's lawyer who shows up in his apartment at the beginning of Fletch. Boom.
That's awesome. I love it.
I thought that you would. George Weiner. He was been in a ton of stuff through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. Great, funny actor. Anyway, that's a super everybody Kev's nug. Then the other one is, because I went off about, and this one's great because I went off about this one when we talked about The Expanse, and it took me a while for you to get even a millimeter of interest from the two of you, was that Jack Ruby was played by John Capellos. Again, he played the service technician in the beginning of The Expanse that got stuffed in the panel.
No way.
He's the guy that played, yes, he's the guy that played Jack Ruby,
That's
who was
awesome.
also in, 16 Candles and all those great films that those John Hughes movies.
Didn't he play Admiral Pike in Star Trek?
Yeah, I think so.
He did play Admiral Pike in Star Trek. That's correct. And he also played that really funny guy in the bar in Weird Science. So at any rate, those are my two total everybody Kev's nuggets. So there you have it.
I like it, man.
He's into Malakas?
Yeah, he was the Malakas guy. Totally. She's into Malakas, Dino. She's into Malakas.
I remember specifically how little of a shit I gave about that nugget in the Expanse episode. That's fantastic.
I know.
All right, I've got a couple here. So the creator of this comic book series is named Gerard Way, and
It's Joe Rogan's cousin.
Joe Rogan's cousin. And in case you didn't pick up on it, he is the lead singer of My Chemical Romance, which is one of the most annoying mid-2000s emo bands that I ever listened to in my entire life. Like, there was a radio station in San Francisco that all the job sites would play, and it was like the height of emo bullshit music, and I fucking hated it.
Ugh.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree.
And so when I found out that he was the creator, I was like, that's probably why this isn't my flavor. It's just not my flavor. Just like the music.
Huh. Interesting. Well, there's a lot of gaps between, like, really long gap between the first limited series and the second limited series. So
he was doing other stuff, I guess.
And that's what he was doing. Yeah, he was making music. So I couldn't find what band he was in, but I did see that he was a musician.
Yeah. Well, if you're unfamiliar with My Chemical Romance, check out some YouTube videos just to learn what you've been missing out on, because it's.
You mean to get
something.
angry?
Yeah, to wish that you had those few minutes back.
Yeah. How do you feel about anger? Watch this.
So the nugget that I hope will really, really impress you guys here is Way was brought into the Marvel Universe and wrote for the alt Spider-Man series Edge of Spider-Verse, and he introduced Peni Parker, the Japanese girl with the robot spider that is in Into the Spider-Verse.
Wow. Interesting.
So I like that little nugget.
That's cool. Yeah, it is a very cool nugget.
And them's my nuggets.
Huh. Wow, really good ones. I can't believe he's Joe Rogan's cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did have a nugget, Benny. Good job.
See?
Yeah. To be fair, I think that has always colored my perception of this series, because I too abhor My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm glad I found out about it after watching it.
I was like, oh, it was written by him? Oh, God. And it's apparently very autobiographical, because, like, I know I think he at least has one brother in the band, and apparently they were like a high functioning sort of musical family or whatever, and there was a lot of squabbling and such that went on. So
okay,
apparently, yeah.
Who's the guy? Like, what is his role in the band?
Gerard Way. He's the lead singer.
That's the guy that wrote this?
Yep. Clearly, you've ejected into looking into it a little bit.
I deny nothing.
All right. Perfect segue into deaths then, because you just died again.
2 deaths, because I just killed myself again. Oh my God. That was upsetting. Wow. Now I get why you're so upset.
Oh God.
No, I really do. I'm not being facetious in any way. It's I just got really, really depressed, so I'm gonna need to go and comb my mustache to feel better. Oh wow!
Are you still watching a music video or something?
Did that just color your rating?
No. I was just tracking. I was just jotting something down. Sorry. Deaths. Okay, here's what I got. I tried to make a sort of connection, like Ben kept talking about Arthur Dent whinging about tea in the book, in the episode about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I was trying to sort of make a connection there, but he was still pissed about his computer and just this show in general. So, and now the emo music, I get the whole thing now. So that was just a dismal failure on my part. So that was my death. Then Chad, you died on this nugget thing.
My nugget joke that didn't land. Yep.
Yeah, the nugget joke didn't work out so great. Then I just died ejecting myself to watch the emo video. Then I committed suicide after I watched the emo video, or rather during. And then Ben pretty much killed himself at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Pretty much, yeah.
Thumbs up, man. That's what I got, folks.
Ratings. Television historically has been letter grades, just to remind you, Kev.
Thank you, Bashad, for reminding me of that. I actually did remember this time, strangely enough. And I would also like to add that for all the folks at home, typically Chad is the polar opposite of Ben and myself. This time it's me, who is the polar opposite of Jarhigo and Algorithm. So let's get to it.
Give it to me, Kev. I want to hear yours first.
Ben's.
No, I want to hear Kev's first.
No, hold on. When I think about Ben in this episode, I think about Men on Film for some reason. Hated it.
Yeah, well, that would be too strong because I really don't hate it. I just don't care for it. I think it's well done. I just don't care for it.
Yeah, it's uninteresting. I get that. Okay, Chad, you want to hear my rating first? Yes. I'm going to give this an A because I thought it was definitely better than season 1. Contrary to what you guys thought, I do like the characters. You made a strong case, and I do see what you're talking about how they are, I would say, written still a little kind of juvenile. You know, I mean, they are younger people, so that sort of stands to figure. That didn't bother me as much as you guys. I thought there were some interesting developmental arcs. You know, not a ton of movement there, but the needle was moving for sure. You know, Vanya, Klaus, whatever. 5 was my favorite. I thought the overall package was really where it was at this time. It was the cinematography, the writing, dialogue was great, music, the way that the show was cut in terms of some of the story elements were, you know, out of order, you know, so you get little bits of it later or sooner rather than later or later rather than sooner. I dug that. I just absolutely loved the music, the score, and the popular music that was injected into it. I thought it worked beautifully throughout. Fight scenes, excellent. Weird Swedish guys, A+. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I would watch it again. I really enjoyed it a lot. And I may watch it again and be like, you know what, those two turds were right, and now I hate this. But for the time being, I still like it, and it's still an A, which I think last time I gave it a B.
Benny, would you like to go next?
F+.
No, I'm not even going to rate this that badly because it's look, it's a taste thing for me. I think it's very well done. I probably have a problem with the story and the characters and the writing, but the production and the actors and everything is really splendid. You know, the fight scenes are really good, what there is, and there are some interesting concepts going on. It doesn't resonate with me. So I would feel kind of bad about rating it poorly because of that. Like, I'm not going to give it an F, although, you know, for me, it sort of is. So, but in terms of, that doesn't even make any sense.
No, I got you. Definitely.
It's not fair for me to rate it that way, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It has to color it somewhat though. So I'll give it a B- again.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I think I gave it a B- the first time.
I like it, Benny. I feel similarly. I don't hate the show very much for the same reasons in terms of like the production value is so high and just the execution of so many of the things were so fantastic. Clearly they had a lot of money to spend and they made some great eye candy-ish bits, and there were some moments that I really enjoyed. In terms of the story and the character arc stuff that I talked about before, I kind of feel like they missed the mark, and it kind of takes it from like a, yeah, okay, entertaining to a like borderline place, you know, like it's kind of a borderline good bad. And so On the Border for me is a C, so it's a low C, so it's not a brutal rating by any means, but I think like there's structural issues with it. I do feel like they definitely seem to have elevated the source material just from what I have read by trimming some of the weirder stuff. But, you know, it just isn't my flavor. So same. Just to kind of clarify on the My Chemical Romance dude, like, just because I don't particularly like their music and just because I don't particularly connect with the show, like, clearly the dude's doing something right. He's a very fucking successful person.
Definitely.
So, like, fair dues to the success and likely very hard work, but it just doesn't fit my particular tastes, that's all. So low C for me.
Interesting.
So, well, we spent an hour shit-talking it. We didn't rate it that badly.
No, we didn't. And I said a lot of good things about it. So what do we have coming up next week? Algorithm.
Well, next week we are going to be putting out the first in our book club series with Hyperion. So I'm excited to finally get that one out, and hopefully people have had some time to listen to the audiobook or read the book.
Absolutely. Get on it, folks, because that's a really, really great science fiction situation.
And if you're a podcast head like we are, you can get through the audiobook quite quickly. So you'd be able to start it this week and finish it this week if you just, listen to it while doing whatever you normally do with your podcasts.
Mowing the lawn or scrubbing the toilets or whatever.
Yeah, man.
So anyway, folks, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this episode of our little show. And we will see you next time. So long.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
And that's going to wrap up this week's episode. Folks, if you'd like to support the show, rate us and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast muffin nuggets. You can also tell a friend to check out the show, because everybody loves a friend, and everybody loves a friend who loves the show. You can find the show notes for this episode in your podcast app of choice, or at our website, ebd.fm/episodes/68. Folks, if you'd like to interact with us in any way, shape, or form, you can do it on various social media platforms. We are at EBD Podcast on most of them. You can find me at Wolverine on Twitter. You can find Chad at Chad Normal on Twitter, and Ben is at Jarhigo on Twitter. We are mostly conversating on Instagram, although we do talk on Facebook Messenger, so feel free to send us a message on either. Feel free to comment or post or like or whatever. We love continuing the conversation about nerdery. And that's about it. Join us next week as we start the first of our book club series on the sci-fi spectacular Hyperion. And thanks again for listening, and we'll see you another time.